If you have weak faith and unanswered questions about God, can you still pray? Here's Pastor Cliff Boone of Cedar Crest Bible Fellowship Church in Allentown.
Small faith and unanswered questions do not prevent us from being fervent in prayer and seeing God answer prayer. Look back at verse 5. You see at verse 5? It says, so Peter was kept in the prison, but prayer for him was being made fervently by the church to God. They were fervent in prayer for him. And yet, as we pointed out in verse 12, in verse 12 it says again they're praying, but in verse 15 and 16 they're saying to Rhoda, you're out of your mind. It can't be Peter. The very guy they're praying for, God's answered their prayers and they don't believe it. They're amazed, it says in verse 16. Okay, confession time. Is there anybody else in this room other than myself that can relate to this? You've prayed for something and he answers and you're amazed. Anybody? I'm not alone. You know, that's one reason why the scriptures are so sweet, is because they're not made up, they're real, they're about real people, and we find ourselves in them, don't we? We find the very problems and answers of our own lives, we find them right here. And so they had weak or wobbly faith, but they prayed and God answered. But they also had unanswered questions. Like in verse 2, you see that James, the brother of John, was put to death. James was the apostle, James the disciple that walked all those miles with Jesus around Israel. That's James. And it says with a sword, and apparently that means he was beheaded. So James is beheaded. Peter is rescued. Well, why Peter and not James? I mean, why was Peter rescued and James wasn't? Or why didn't they both get rescued? Well, we don't know the answer, do we? We don't know that answer. Why did God let the one thing happen to James and then he had something else happen to Peter? We don't know. We don't know. Unanswered questions. And just as you could relate to me in the fact that you probably have prayed with weak faith at times and been surprised at the answer, you probably can relate to this and to even my own life, that we have questions that aren't answered by God, right? Yeah, why this and not that? Why me and not them? Why them, not me? Why? We don't know. But that doesn't mean that we can't pray.
That was Pastor Cliff Boone from Cedar Crest Bible Fellowship Church in Allentown. You can hear the entire message and many more at cedarcrestbfc.org. Visit Pastor Boone's blog at alivetogod.com.